Joining us now on the program, as he does each and every week on Wednesday, is Dave Dulio from Oakland University. He is the professor of political science, as well as the director of the Center for Civic Engagement on campus at OU. Dave, thanks for being with us today.
Hey, good morning, Tyler.
Good to have you on with us. Let's begin with what's happening in the Michigan G.O.P. Obviously, we've talked about this several times before. Following the results of the 2022 election, a lot to consider for the Michigan G.O.P. and at the top of their list right now for their immediate considerations is their leadership for the future. We've had plenty of people already throwing their hats into the ring for potentially being the chairperson of the Michigan G.O.P., including candidates that lost in this election. Certainly Matthew DePerno was one of the first to put his names in the ring. We've heard rumblings potentially Tudor Dixon. Now we're hearing Christina Caramo, and even some blasts from the recent past a little bit. Pete Hoekstra throwing his name in the ring as well this week. What's the status of that race, and just how important is that decision and the Michigan GOP for the future of the party here in what's now a swing state?
Well, it may be a bit overstated, but the status of that race is kind of chaotic. We're in a spot where the different potential candidates are maybe feeling their way through the initial phases of either a consideration for running when it comes to folks like Tudor Dixon, or making that announcement and then trying to build support. If we're talking about folks like Matt DePerno or Christina Caramo, or as you mentioned, Pete Hoekstra. And then, it'll sort of die down. The public aspect of it will die down for a couple months and really start to ratchet up in February of 2023, when the Republicans will gather at a state convention to choose their leadership for the next few years. And it's really important, right? I mean, the state party chair guides the direction of the party. The state party chair has obvious influence over how resources are deployed and spent. And moving into a presidential year where Michigan is going to have a really important role in the general election, but also some movement yesterday appears that Michigan may be moving its primary from early 2024 to even earlier in 2024, from March to February, which would put Michigan in the really early stages of the presidential primary season, and the state party chair would have a big role in that as well.
And it's such a key race too, because this is going to set the tone in Michigan, as you said, for the next 2 years, heading into a critical general election year, presidential election year in 2024. And so for those that are within the party, what are their major considerations, or what will predictably be their major considerations in making this decision? Because you do have, much like you have in many other places in the US, kind of that, do we go the Trump camp way? Do we go somewhere that's Trump-esque but not necessarily in his camp? Or do we go more traditional, or so to speak, the Rhino route with our leadership and maybe back to some tradition?
Yeah, I think that really describes it pretty well. The Republicans are at a crossroads, and they have to figure out which path are they going to take. I frankly, I think that they've been at this crossroads for a couple years now, and it seems there's evidence on both sides, right? That it's kind of been mixed over the last 2 years. Maybe they've got we could think about it as they've got a foot on each path at the crossroads here. But they're going to have to figure it out. And I think races like the one that we're going to see for state party chair could really go a long way in telling us what the Republican Party is going to look like, certainly here in Michigan, over the next several years, right? I mean, if the race turns out to be one that say Matt DePerno wins, right? That means something incredibly different than if Pete Hoekstra wins. And the direction of the party will be shaped in some aspects, not totally, because the fact is that the state party apparatus, while it has resources and influence, it doesn't do the kind of candidate recruitment that the state party or the national party did decades ago, right? We have this system where candidates self-select into running for office. Certainly, and we've seen it in previous cycles where the state party could put their thumb on the scale a bit, maybe in a primary, to try to push one of their preferred candidates across the primary finish line. But I think you're going to see a real battle because of the importance of the control of the levers of power in the Michigan GOP.
Going to the national level, Dave, of course, in the 2022 election, the Democrats losing control of the House of Representatives. And with that, Nancy Pelosi, the longtime Speaker of the House, a Democrat from California, has announced that she will no longer be pursuing high leadership positions in the Democratic Party going forward. How does that how does that change in leadership in the Democratic Party affect them on a national level? And what really are they looking for right now in terms of putting the right person, some new blood in that sort of a leadership role as they set the tone as well for 2024 and beyond?
Yeah, I think it really is about new blood and new ideas, and maybe even something as simple as a new voice, right? Where Nancy Pelosi has been the spokesperson, the main spokesperson for House Democrats for years and years and years, right? And now it looks like it's going to be somebody named Hakeem Jeffries from New York, who is, Nancy Pelosi's got her progressive credentials, no doubt, right? But she was also in some respects a pragmatist, and would sort of work the House and the rules and the legislative process in a way that got her to where she wanted to be, right? And was it's less of importance in the House than it is the Senate, but mastering that parliamentary procedure, mastering the schedule and the rules of the House to get the outcome that you're looking for. We'll see if Hakeem Jeffries is can have that influence. Of course, it's much less when when they're in the minority, because the House is so much different than, say, the Senate, where the minority party can really have an impact on legislative outcomes. In the House, the job of the minority is basically show up, get your butt kicked, and collect a paycheck, right? Because it is a pure majoritarian institution, where if Kevin McCarthy, as Speaker of the House, can keep his Republicans together, his small majority of Republicans together, they can do whatever they want, right? They can pass whatever they want. But with divided government, with the Democrats in control of the Senate still, and certainly in the White House, that the legislative piece of it is probably not going to mean a whole lot. The real difference, I think, to look forward into 2023 is the investigations and the oversight that congressional Republicans will be able to launch into the Biden administration. And even they've already said they're going to look into Hunter Biden and his laptop and other business dealings. So that's something to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, expect a lot of very hard changes in the House of Representatives. A quick turn to the right come January when the Republicans take power in the House of Representatives, the Democrats retaining power in the Senate after this election. We're joined by Dave Dulio on today's edition of the Megacast, professor of political science at Oakland University, where he also serves as their director for the Center for Civic Engagement. More information can be found on the Center for Civic Engagement, their programs and discussions at oakland.edu/CCE, oakland.edu/CCE. And Dave, recently making some controversy, a meeting at Mar-a-Lago, a dinner between Donald Trump and Kanye West, who's also had his fair share of controversy in the news of late. But what really made some sparks fly in the news cycle about that particular meeting was the involvement of neo-Nazi Nick Fuentes, and there's been plenty of reports from all different angles on this of what went on at that dinner, whether or not Donald Trump knew that this individual was going to be coming alongside Kanye West to that dinner. Regardless, it's a lot of controversy that maybe is not quite what Donald Trump wants to be having in his camp at this particular time, as the GOP is looking at other candidates and whether or not Donald Trump is the future of that party. How does an incident like this affect Donald Trump and where he currently stands in the GOP in terms of his leadership position and his prospects for 2024?
Well, I think I would answer it this way, right? It doesn't help him at all,
Yeah.
right? And it's another um, piece of evidence, right? That folks who want to dump Trump from the GOP can point to and say, look, this is another example of whether it's poor judgment or the wrong system of beliefs or whatever it might be, right? That gives them another argument to say to those who have influence, hey, look, we got to move on, right? This guy's going to hurt us. He's going to be a drag on the party. He's going to be a drag on the congressional candidates or the statewide candidates in across the nation in individual states. So I think that it's just another misstep from the former president, and one that doesn't help him. It's going to give ammunition to his primary rivals, come 2024, and it's going to be something that's going to be tough to get over, I think, for him.
He's been able to dig his way out of plenty of different gaffes and issues in the past in running for leadership position in the GOP as well as at the national level in his first run for president. The question is, can he do that again, or is this and other incidents that may or may not come going forward one step too far? We're joined by Dave Dulio on today's edition of the Megacast. Dave, a couple more minutes with you before we'll have to wrap things up today. I want to give you a chance if there's anything going on coming up or things in the works that you'd like to discuss at the Center for Civic Engagement.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, Tyler. And we'll take a little hiatus here as we enter the holiday season, and as we come back in January, that's when I'll have a few more details that I can share about things we've got irons in the fire, if you will.
Well, we appreciate you joining us as you do every week to talk about what's going on in Michigan politics. Always something moving in the state of Michigan at the national level that will affect us here in the Great Lakes State. Dave, thank you.
All right. Thanks for having me.